والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين إمامنا وسيدنا الحجة بن الحسن المهدي أرواح العالمين له الفداء. اللهم صل على محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is honestly my very great honor and pleasure to be amongst you these several nights, and especially on this evening, as we have gathered to increase our knowledge and love for the path of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. I tell you that you truly have a wonderful community, and it has been my honor to come to know this community and see these wonderful youthful faces who have gathered to show their love and support for Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha. Now when we speakers are on the pulpit, on the minbar speaking, it's usually our turn to address the community. It's usually our turn to speak to you. Now today we have this Q&A session. It's your turn now. Any question that you have, whether it's related to the speeches or not, any concerns that you have, any doubts that you have, please take this as an opportunity to come forward with your concerns, to ask, and inshallah I'll do my best to answer the questions. Now if you're not fluent in English, you can always write or ask in Dutch, and the brothers can translate for me inshallah, and I can give you the answer. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's start with the first question. Is donating organs haram?
With respect to organ donation, we know that sometimes we can save the life of someone, a human being, if we donate an organ. So what is the ruling of our scholars? The general ruling is that we have two types of organs: external organs, internal organs. External organs are like your hands, your eyes, let's say, even your nose. These are external organs, outside organs. Our scholars, generally speaking, they say we are not allowed to donate these organs. The external organs are haram to be donated. How about the internal organs? Let's say, for example, one of your kidneys. Someone is suffering from a kidney failure. Their two kidneys are not working, and they need a kidney. Can I donate a kidney? Yes. If your life does not depend on that organ, because you can live on one kidney, you can donate that to save someone's life. Now how about this question? Some people write in their will, I know in the United States you can do that on your driver's license, I'm not sure how it works here, but you can check a box which says that if I die in an accident and they could use my organs, such as my heart, my liver, my kidneys, any other organs, internal organs, to save someone's life, then I give you permission. So in these circumstances, are we allowed to donate our organs? Our scholars say yes, you are allowed to donate an organ after you die if the recipient is a Muslim. If the recipient, the one who's receiving this organ, is a Muslim, then yes, you can donate that to this person. There's nothing wrong with that, provided that it's an internal organ.
Thank you, Sayyidina. Is gelatin halal?
Now regarding gelatin, you know, a lot of those delicious foods and candies these days, they have gelatin, right? So what do we do with all this gelatin around? We have two types of gelatin, or actually three types. The first type is vegetable gelatin, vegetarian. It's a type of gelatin that's taken from plants. This is halal. We have absolutely no problem. You can eat vegetable gelatin. The other type of gelatin is pork gelatin. And the third type of gelatin is gelatin which is not taken from pork. Let's say it's taken from a cow or from another type of animal. What's the ruling here? Now, our scholars say if the gelatin goes through a process of total transformation, then it becomes halal. Let me give you an example, just so you can understand what that means. You know, in Islam, let's say, a dog is najis, right? If you touch it with a wet hand, your hands become najis and you have to wash them if you want to pray or, you know, touch something, your prayer rug or the turba, the muhur. Now, let's say a dog, let's just say, burns and it becomes into ashes. Are those ashes najis? No. Why? It's the ashes of the same dog. But it's no longer najis because it transformed. It's no longer that living being. It's now turned into ashes. It changed to a new substance. So that's why it becomes tahir. Now, if the gelatin, which is taken from the, you know, let's say the bones of an animal or the cartilage of an animal, if it goes through a chemical change, through a chemical process which completely changes it, then it becomes tahir and it becomes halal. Now, here's the tough question. Gelatin, does it actually transform 100% or no? There are people who give you different answers. We've asked scientists, each one gives you an answer. Some say yes, some say no. So in this case, what do? Right now, we don't know if this gelatin went through transformation. Now, here's the tough part. There are some scholars, like Ayatollah Sistani, what do they say? They say if the gelatin is taken from the non-living, from the dead parts of the animal, then it's halal. Can you give me a few examples of what a dead part is from an animal? A dead part technically means a part which has no life in it, which has no nerves in it. Can you give me an example? Bones, for example. The bones, in Islamic law, they're considered to be dead parts. So if the gelatin is taken from the bone, then it's halal, according to scholars like Ayatollah Sistani. Then another example, of course this is not related to gelatin, but the hair. The hair also is not a living part because it has no nerves in it. Yes, the endings of it has nerves, but the hair itself has no nerves. So now if the gelatin is taken from these body parts of an animal, such as the bones, then it's also halal. But the problem is, most times we don't know what is the source of this gelatin. We're not sure. We have no clue. So my suggestion to you, brothers and sisters, whenever you buy something, there's a number on the back where you can call the company. Call the company and ask them what type of gelatin are you using in this product. If they tell you it's vegetable gelatin, alhamdulillah, go and eat it, it's halal. If they tell you it's pork gelatin, stay away from it. You don't want any pork going into your body, and we don't know if it's transformed 100%. Because there are differences of opinion here. Scientists have differences of opinion as to whether this has gone through total transformation. Now, if they tell you this is from a cow, let's say, can you ask them, can you tell me which part? If it's from the bones, it's fine. Now, if it's not from the bones, if it's from other areas, then in this case, you should stop using this product. Do not eat this product because there's a chance that it's haram. Now the question is, do you have to go and ask, is my Islamic obligation to go and exactly find out what is the source? No. Because the hadith says, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ لَكَ حَلَالٍ حَتَّى تَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ حَرَامٍ. Everything is halal for you, except if you know. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you order a meal. Now it's possible that the chef or the person who's working in the kitchen, they touched it and made it najis, right? But do you know? You don't know. Since you're not certain, since you don't know, you can assume it's halal. But my advice to you, respected brothers and sisters, is that anything that has gelatin and it's not from a vegetable source, stay away from it. Because this has an effect on you. It has an effect. If it's haram, it has an effect on your soul. And you don't want those negative effects. You want the positive effects from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unless you have to take it. Let's say, God forbid, you're sick, and the doctor tells you this medicine has gelatin and you have to take it, fine. If it's necessary for you to take it, you can take it. But if it's not necessary, I recommend you stay away from it.
Thank you, Sayyidina. Assalamu alaikum. I have a good friend who, alhamdulillah, found the right path of the Ahlul Bayt, but she has to practice taqiyya. The problem is, throughout the day she prays the same way that Sunni people pray. In the evening she wants to redo her salat on the Shia way. But sometimes that's very hard because her parents and sisters are around. Is that a problem if she can't redo all her prayers in Shia style?
The practice of taqiyya basically means that sometimes if you're in danger, if you're in certain situations where if you practice your faith, then you could be harmed. And during the times of the Imams alayhimus salam, this applied to most Shia. If in a masjid, a Shia would pray, for example, with hands down on the sand, then there would be people, enemies, who could kill them, who could harass them, who could harm them. So the Imam alayhi salam, in order to protect the lives of the Shia, the Imam taught them the practice of taqiyya, which is found in the Quran. And Ammar ibn Yasir was the first one who practiced. His parents, the parents of Ammar ibn Yasir, they refused to do taqiyya. They were killed and they became shaheed. The first one who did taqiyya was Ammar ibn Yasir. The pagans forced him to reject the one God, or they would kill him. He was forced. So he just said, okay, I believe in your idols. And then he felt very bad. Why did I say that? He came to the Prophet. Allah revealed the Quran. Verses in the Quran. إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرَهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. Allah witnessed that the heart of Ammar ibn Yasir was full of Iman. But he was forced. So this is a taqiyya. You know, those who accuse the Shia, where do you get the taqiyya from? This is bid'ah. This is lying to others. No, it's found in the Quran. Another verse says, إِلَّا أَن تَتَّقُوا مِنْهُمْ تُقَاتٍ. So the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, would tell their followers that if you're in danger, then practice taqiyya. Pray like them. That's fine, and Allah will accept your prayer. Now, with respect to your friend, what can your friend do? Now, if your friend is in a place where she cannot pray, you know, according to the madhab of Ahlul Bayt, then that's fine. She can practice taqiyya. If that brings her harm, if it endangers her in any way, if it causes her family to turn against her, that's fine. She can practice taqiyya. But if she can go home in her own room and redo the salah, then she can redo the salah. Now, if she does not have her own room, she really can't go to a place, privately pray, according to the madhab of Ahlul Bayt, that's fine. Her salah which she prayed is valid, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept it. So she really has nothing to worry about. If she can do it in a place where no one sees her, great, let her do that. But if she can't, that's fine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept that from her, because she is practicing taqiyya. If she feels endangered, if she feels she will be harmed or harassed by the family, then that's fine. She can practice taqiyya, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept her salah.
Ahsan Sayyidina. Perhaps you would like to choose yourself. We have this kind of question. Is that suitable?
It's okay. Any question?
Okay. What is temporary marriage and whom is it meant for, and in which extent can it be applied?
According to the Quran, in the religion of Islam, we have two types of marriage. One is the permanent marriage. And the definition of a permanent marriage is when you make the marriage contract, there is no limit, there is no time. You're married until divorce happens. If there is no divorce, the marriage continues. Now there is a second type of marriage, which is mentioned in Surah An-Nisa, verse 24. And this is called temporary marriage. And the definition of a temporary marriage, it's a full marriage. All the rules regarding marriage applies. The only difference is that in a temporary marriage, you have to specify a limit. You have to say in the marriage contract that you will be married for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. You have to specify a time. That's the definition of a temporary marriage. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with desires. And Allah has given us needs. At the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us ways to fulfill these needs. We have to be practical. There are certain circumstances where someone cannot afford to get married. You cannot find someone suitable for permanent marriage. Or you don't have enough money to get married. You went, you proposed, the family rejected. They say, no, you don't have that much money, you're still studying, you're still, very humble financially. So this, let's say you've tried to get married and they couldn't. Now I ask you the question, now if this person could not get married, will the temptations and desires go? No, of course not. You still have temptations, you still have needs, you still have desires. So what do? Do you resort to haram ways? Do you allow yourself to fall into sins? Yes, you have to restrain yourself, but it's very difficult. Sometimes you cannot, especially in our society. You go to school, you're exposed to the opposite gender, the billboards and the TVs and the ads and the commercials. All these make it very difficult for our youth to control their desires. So if they have no way out, they cannot permanently get married. And they've reached to a point where they can no longer control themselves. Then I ask you, should they allow themselves to fall into haram? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given an alternative. That if you're stuck, you cannot get married, you can't afford it, you can't control your desires, then don't do haram. Don't commit adultery or fornication or other types of, illegal ways. Temporary marriage is a temporary solution for those people who cannot control their desires and they cannot get married. This is a solution for them. This is a temporary solution for them. Now the problem is, and please listen very carefully, the problem is that some of our youth abuse this. See, everything has to be taken moderately in Islam. When you eat as much as you want, but moderately. Some people, they eat to the point where they're about to explode, especially in the month of Ramadan, right? This is harming your health. Whenever you do something excessive, it harms you. The same pill that your doctor gives you, if you take it, you become healthy, right? But if you overdose, instead of taking 1 pill, you take 20 pills. What happens? You can kill yourself. You can end up killing yourself because you're overdosing. Anything which you abuse and do excessively will cause you harm. It's the same with temporary marriage. Temporary marriage is to be used only when necessary, when there is no other alternative, when there is no other solution. And the person finds himself, he is about to fall into haram and there's no other way out, then yes, this can be a temporary solution. But unfortunately, some of our youth, they begin to do it excessively. It becomes a habit for them. And this is a problem. This in the future will ruin your life. Because if you get, into the habit of doing temporary marriage before you get married, and it becomes an addiction for you, then tomorrow once you get married and you settle down, you won't actually settle down. You will continue to doing that. Your wife finds out, your spouse finds out, it's a problem, and then that ruins your marriage. So we have to be very wise, respected brothers and sisters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given that as a solution, but only when necessary. The times have changed, our societies have changed. So we need to be very sensitive. In the future, inshallah, you all want good families. You want to have a good relationship with your spouse. You don't want to do something that will ruin that relationship and that will end in divorce. And once there's a divorce, then what happens to the children? They will suffer. They will grow up with psychological problems. So it's to be used only when necessary. And that's the temporary solution that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to people and humanity.
Thank you, Sayyidina, for clarifying this matter. How can you honor your mother who passed away?
Very good question. You know, there's a hadith. Whenever I remember this hadith, it's really frightening. It says there are some people, in their lives, they're good with their parents. You see, going to his parents, he kisses his mother's hands, he's nice to her, he never angers her, he serves her. But when she dies, when the father dies, they forget about their parents. The hadith says, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will consider this person aq. What does aq mean? Those who were disobedient to their parents. You will say, oh Allah, I was obedient. You saw me, you're my witness. I was always good to them. Whenever they needed me, I helped them. Why am I disobedient now? Allah will tell you, look, when they died, you forgot about them. That's how you became disobedient. And the hadith says, and there are people in their lives, they're disobedient to their parents. But when their parents die, they feel regretful. They start doing good deeds on behalf of their parents. On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will consider them bar, obedient people. Allah has given them a chance. Now, this is the point I want to share with you. In our lives, when our parents are alive, yes, they need us. But they can also help themselves a little bit, right? I mean, they need your help, either financially or for you to do something for them. Psychologically, they need our support. Emotionally, they need our support. But to an extent, they can help themselves. The problem is when they die, they can no longer help themselves. That's it. Whatever they did, they did. They will not be given another chance to do good deeds. So their eyes are on whom? On their children. In their grave, their eyes are on their children. They're waiting, minute by minute, and second by second, for their children to do good deeds and offer. Now imagine if you forget about your parents. Imagine how upset they will be. They will say, we raised you, we took care of you, we spent so much time for you. And now that we need you most, you've forgotten about us. So what can we do to our parents? Number one, pray on their behalf. Even if it's 2 rak'ahs. You know what the Prophet, peace be upon him, says? He says 2 rak'ahs, which you people belittle, right? Don't we belittle 2 rak'ahs? What's the value of 2 rak'ahs? If you ask the average person, oh, it's just a normal salah, you know, what's the big deal? The Prophet says 2 rak'ahs, which you belittle, which you consider to have very little value, is better for the dead people and more beneficial to them than the entire world and that which it contains. These are the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every day, if you can, if you have grandparents who have passed away, parents who have passed away, every day 2 minutes. Honestly, is that too much to ask for? 2 minutes of your day? Do salah, offer it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just like the morning prayer, and give it as a gift to the soul of your parents, to the soul of your grandparents, or anyone who has passed away, your spouse, cousins, great-grandparents. You know how much this helps them, brothers and sisters? The hadith says when a person dies, he will be cut off from everything, except 3. One of them is what? Good children who do good deeds and they benefit from it. So our parents, after they pass away, they will be waiting every moment for us to offer some good deeds. So this is one thing that you have to do. Pray, even if it's 2 rak'ahs. If you want more, excellent. But at least 2 rak'ahs, if you can, every day. Number 2, pay sadaqah or charity on their behalf. Even if it's €0.50, that's fine. If you can, every week, €1, every day, €1, that's fine. You know how much that benefits them? That gives them relief in their grave. Give it to a poor person, put it in that box that you have in your house for the sadaqah, for the charity. And make the niyyah, the intention, I am giving this on behalf of my parents, on my grandparents, or whoever it is. Number 3, read Quran on their behalf. Read Quran, brothers and sisters. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, in her will to Imam Ali alayhi salam, she made a few requests. What was one of them? She told him, "Oh Ali, after I die, I want you to come to my grave. Sit by my grave and recite the whole Quran." Fatima alayhi salam, with all her greatness, and she is the lady of the world, but she is asking Imam Ali to recite Quran after she passes away, because she realizes the power of the Quran. And Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam would go in the middle of the night, he would sit next to the grave of Fatima, and he used to recite Quran on her behalf. So this is the third thing. That there are many other good actions that you can do. For example, when there is an event in the Husayniyah, the food. Come and donate the food on behalf of your parents. You know how much that benefits them? How much good deeds? We call them the niyaz, right? Or what do you call them in Farsi?
Niyaz?
Niyaz, yeah. So give this. In the name of your parents, in the name of your grandparents. Do any good deed on their behalf, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take those good deeds to them, and this will greatly help them, inshallah.
Thank you, Sayyidina. How can you make up for injustice you committed against a dead person?
Very good question. Let's say, God forbid, you oppress someone. You did an act of injustice against someone, and now they're dead. You can't go to them and ask them for maghfirah. You can't go and ask them for forgiveness. So what do? In this case, respected brothers and sisters, the hadith says, pay sadaqah on their behalf. You wronged them, right? Now do something that helps them. Go and pay sadaqah, pay charity, and make the intention, oh Allah, I am paying sadaqah, charity, on behalf of that person who's dead now, whom I have wronged. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will convince that dead person to forgive you, inshallah. So this is one thing that you can do. Another thing that you can do is to be good with that person's family. If you had wronged that person in any way, go now to his family and be respectful to his family. Show respect to his children, to his brothers, to his other family members. Because if you want to respect someone, you respect their family as well. If we want to respect the Holy Prophet ﷺ, who do we respect as well? The family, the Ahlul Bayt. Respecting the Ahlul Bayt is respecting the Prophet. And I say this to all those Muslims who don't respect the Ahlul Bayt the way they should. They're not respecting Rasulullah ﷺ. Therefore, if you have wronged someone, do a good deed, such as paying sadaqah on their behalf, or go and respect their living children, if you have access to them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the Day of Judgment, will convince this person to forgive you. Now here's the question. What if that person says, no, I don't want to forgive you? This man ruined my reputation, or this woman injured me with what she said, or she did something, she ruined my life, whatever it is. I'm not going to forgive that person. What happens in that case? Because if that person doesn't forgive you, then Allah may not forgive you. That person whom you wronged has to forgive you. So here's what our scholars say and what the hadith says. Let's say this person whom you wronged, on the Day of Judgment says, okay, I'm not willing to forgive you. Oh, Allah punish that person who wronged me, who did injustice against me. Allah will say to that person, Allah says, look, you are in paradise, yes, you are a good person. But you are in this level of paradise. If you forgive that person, I will elevate your status and I will take you to a higher level in Jannah, in heaven. And Allah will show him that higher level. You think he won't accept? What has he got to lose? For eternity, forever, he's going to be in a better place, and he saw that better place. So why should he go down to that level when he can freely go to that higher level? That's how Allah will convince him. Look at the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's say he says, no, I don't want to forgive. He's stubborn, okay? There are some people who are stubborn. They're not willing to forgive. Allah will show him a higher status. Okay, see that other position? I will take you 10 levels higher. Allah will keep increasing until what? That person is satisfied. Another way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will encourage these people to forgive. Allah will tell them, look, you have sins too. Want me to forgive you? Forgive that person. If you forgive that person, then I'll forgive you. Obviously, what that person is going to do, he's going to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you because he also wants to be forgiven. She also wants to be forgiven.
Thank you, Sayyidina. In a hadith of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he does not see it fine to talk to a female more than 5 words if it is not required. Now, how about chats like Facebook between boys and girls these days? What is your opinion about that?
Very good question. How do we come to understand these ahadith and narrations? Or for example, there's another narration by Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, which we'll discuss tomorrow in the Farsi program, in which Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, what does she say? It's best for a woman not to see men or be seen by men. Or the hadith which we mentioned. What are these narrations trying to tell us? Are we not to speak with the opposite gender at all? Complete segregation? There is no interaction at all? Is that what these ahadith are saying? Or no? These ahadith are trying to put proper limits. Here's how we can come to understand these narrations. You see, brothers and sisters, the first day, all of us have good intentions, alhamdulillah. You're going to school, you're interacting with the opposite gender. You could be a sister, you're interacting with brothers, a brother is interacting with sisters. Or you have sessions, or you are in a place where you're meeting members of the opposite gender. Now, day one, we all have good intentions. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be a corrupt person. I'm not having any haram thoughts. We all have good intentions on the first day. But then what happens? As time goes by, as we are exposed to each other more and more, then the shaitan and our desires begin to play with our minds. Initially, you were innocent. You had no wrong intentions. You simply was attending that gathering and you were just having a brotherly conversation. No other intentions involved. But then, do you think this will stay that way? Always? This is the nature of the human being. The more we're exposed to each other, the more we begin to have different types of thoughts. So when the Imam alayhi salam is making such a hadith, one way of understanding the hadith is that the Imam is saying, look, speak only what is necessary. If you're meeting someone to review something which you studied in class, stick to the schedule. Only and only discuss what's in the book, how to prepare for the test, whatever, or for the reason why you've gathered. Or if you're in a masjid, in a mosque, and you're interacting with the opposite gender, a brother is interacting with a sister, it doesn't mean that you're haram to speak to the opposite gender. No, you can speak, but only what's necessary. Because the moment you allow yourself to have a conversation that's not necessary, believe me, your desires and the shaitan are with you. That's why the hadith says if there's a man and a woman privately in one place, there's always a third person. Who's that third person? Shaitan. This is the reality, brothers and sisters. Stick to only to what's necessary. What happens is sometimes when we're together, you see the brothers and sisters, they start to be very comfortable with each other. They start to ask each other, okay, what did you last weekend? How are you feeling these days? What is your interest? This, and this question leads to another question, leads to another question. And the next moment you realize you're joking, you're flirting, and that's how the evil thoughts creep into your mind. So the Imam ﷺ, when he's saying 5 words, it doesn't necessarily mean 5 words literally. No. The Imam ﷺ says, look, speak what's necessary. Anything that's not necessary could allow you to end up in haram. Remember, the shaitan is very smart. The first day, he's not going to tell you, okay, go and commit this haram act. No, because he knows you won't do it. The Quran says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. It's a step, little step, little step, little step. Suddenly you find yourself in haram. So avoid these steps. So you can interact with the opposite gender, that's fine. At work, at school, in the masjid, but stick to only what's necessary. If you're working somewhere, in an office, let's say, and you're a sister and there's a brother in the same office, in the same area, in the same company, keep it strictly professional. Speak about work, about the job that you have to get done. Don't go more into that, brothers and sisters, because experience teaches us that the minute you become comfortable with each other, you start joking around, you start, going off topic, it's no longer professional. That will lead to an affair, and that will lead to haram. So this is how